meet Lorenzo Havana, one of the most fashionable people in town today. But how does he keep up to date with all the latest pop sounds? We asked him.
Simple. I watch Baggy Hi-Fi. Greetings cats and kittens, welcome once again to Baggy Hi-Fi, this YouTube channel devoted to record collecting and the vinyl community here in the UK. Well, I've made videos in the past where I've been showing records that I've rescued from the garage of where I used to live and where I had records stored for a few decades really. And I think the last one I made was about a year ago, and I thought that I'd exhausted the supply of records which I've brought back to this place. And but I did have a recent visit to the garage and I was looking for some other bits and pieces, and I found quite a lot of 7-inch singles, which are really all from about the late 80s, early 90s that I haven't played in a long time. So I thought I'd show them and do some needle drops, because some of them are, I guess, sort of fairly rare in some ways because they were given away free with fanzines, and so I guess they were limited. A couple of them are flexi discs, as I say, from the late 80s, early 90s. Now that period, the late 80s, early 90s in the UK, the music press, the weekly music press, had a real, still had a lot of influence over people's buying tastes. And it seemed that every week in the Melody Maker or the NME, which I was still reading at the time, they would be kind of creating or pushing forward scenes or genres and then dropping them within a few weeks, and then, pushing some other style of music, which they said was the next big thing. For example, at that time, late 80s, quite a lot of noisy bands around, influenced by Sonic Youth, and do that kind of atonal distortion type style. And also quite a lot of bands at the time were sort of discovering bands like the Stooges and looking back to 60s psych and 70s heavy rock. So there'll be a little bit of that in here. Shoegaze, I haven't really got any shoegaze records to show, but that was a scene which was really pushed by the music press and then dropped like a hot coal. And grunge, I guess, which I never really liked. No, I think looking back now, it was really overrated and overhyped, in my opinion. And also Britpop. I guess that was sort of mid-90s onwards, which didn't really like any of that stuff. I mean, who talks now about Oasis as being one of the greatest of all time bands? I do remember a working colleague at that time when Oasis were really riding high on their success, and my friend was saying, Oasis, the greatest band in the world. I rest my case. And that was how the music press was pushing these bands for a while. Anyway, these records I'm going to be showing, I guess, are definitely more of the independent vein, a little bit more underground, I guess. But interesting, I think, interesting for me anyway. I hope it's interesting for you to look back on this period by looking at a few 7-inch singles. First one is by The Heads. Now, I've seen people talk about The Heads. They're a British band, quite influenced by the Stooges, very, very sort of heavy rock, a little bit glam, I guess, as well. The Heads, this record is called Coogan's Bluff, from 94. It's on the Rooster label. And it also contains, which I probably didn't even notice at the time, a packet of seeds, which they say are weed seeds, but what kind of weed? And yeah, I played this one, quite enjoyed hearing it. Really good, high energy Stooges MC5 kind of rock. Now this next one is a band I was really keen on at the time. They made a couple of albums. I've shown one of their albums in the past. Vibrasonic, band from Brighton, I think. Very much in the psych revival vein. On the Target label, there's the little flyer that came with it and the Target label. This is very much American style, electric prunes style psychedelia with everything but the kitchen sink thrown in, sitar, all kinds of reverberations going on there. So that's a really good one, Vibrasonic. This next one is Stereolab, better known band of the time. I think this was a single that was given away on a tour, probably from the 90s, and it's on their duophonic label, and it's called Iron Man, but it's not the Black Sabbath Iron Man. Next one, another well-known band of the late 80s, sort of precursor of grunge, I guess, which I did like this band, Dinosaur Jr., still quite listenable today. I think Dinosaur Jr. had, although they had all these sort of squalls of noise and a lot of guitar action going on, they also had a Neil Youngish kind of melody style of weaving through that noise. And this is a cover they did of the Cure's song Just Like Heaven. It's on Blast First, the label which was seen around a lot in the late 80s, label that Sonic Youth were on in the UK. Now here's the first of one of the 7-inch singles that came with a fanzine. This I think was with Chemical Imbalance fanzine, an American magazine. And on here are Firehose, Leaving Trains. Do we remember these bands? Slovenly. But the reason why I've kept this is because there's a version of the Doors song, Indian Summer, played by Opal, that band that David Roback formed after leaving... what band was it? Rain Parade, of course. Here's another one from a fanzine, and this has Yola Tango, American band Yola Tango, doing a version of Dreams, the Fleetwood Mac song. That's quite a interesting slow version of it. Now another band I was really quite keen on at the time, early 90s, were Flying Saucer Attack. They were a British band and they claimed to be playing rural psychedelia. This is on an American label though. This is Soaring High and Standing Stone. Get the rural references there, on purple vinyl. Now this is sort of I guess has a lot of feedback going on, but with sort of folky-ish melodies going on as well at the same time. As I say, references to the British countryside, and this one was on the VHF label. This one is another one by Flying Saucer Attack, which they shared, and this is a label, a really indie label that did some limited releases at the time, called Enraptured. So on this single package from 1996, probably one of the latest date of the ones I'm going to show, is the American band Spacemen, who were kind of shoegazy, krautrock influenced, and Flying Saucer Attack take the other side with a tune called At Night. So I'm going to do a few needle drops now. Okay, here are some more from this noisy batch of rediscovered singles from the late 80s, early 90s. This first one is by a Scottish jangly pop indie band, The Bachelor Pad. This is on the Egg label, 17 Prince Edward Street, Strathbungo, Glasgow. Trying to get the record out, but anyway, that's what that is, Bachelor Pad. This next one is another one that came with a fanzine, but I'm not sure which fanzine. It includes music by half Japanese, Daniel Johnston doing a version of Casper the Friendly Ghost, and the one that was most interesting to me was Galaxy 500 are on here, a song called Oblivious, which I think is on their first album. It's a very plain packaging there, came with I think that was Chemical Imbalance. Another one, Flexi Disc. This one was given away with the much missed British fanzine Bucket Full of Brains, and it's Roky Erickson and the Resurrectionists with a live version of Don't Shake Me, Lucifer. Now some more from another from a British magazine, fanzine, Sniffin' Rock magazine. I didn't think it wasn't a very good fanzine, pretty superficial, but I used to buy it for the free singles. This one has a track by The Fall, Guest Informant, live in Vienna. And now two bands which were often spoken about in the same breath in the late 80s, early 90s. Loop. This is a song by Loop called Pulse. Now, Loop were very much said to be influenced by Spacemen 3, but they're probably a little bit heavier in some ways, very kind of drony, noisy, distorted, mesmeric tunes they used to play, very long-haired. They did reform, I think, as well. After Loop, they became a more experimental band called Maine, which I believe many people respect and like. But this is a track I'm going to do, Needle Drop by Loop, called Pulse. And this one was also from Sniffin' Rock magazine, and it's a version of a Mudhoney song by Spacemen 3 called When Tomorrow Hits. And I believe this was later a single that had Mudhoney on one side doing a Spacemen 3 song, and this Spacemen 3 doing the Mudhoney song on the flip side. So, time for some more needle drops. final two in this batch of late 80s, early 90s noisy singles. Skullflower. Underappreciated, I would say, the band Skullflower. Doyens of the UK noise psych underground. Mixture of very heavy distorted guitar work by Matthew Bower and G. Ramley. Still going today, although they sometimes record under the name of Sunroof, ! Matthew Bower, yeah, still going. This is a single released on Toe Jam Records, number 372 of 500 from 1988. Rotten Sun, 6 minutes 48, and Spook Rise, 7 minutes 54. So you're going to be in for listening to Skullflower. You're going to be submerged and overpowered by a lot of lovely drony noise. And finally, on the Seminal Twang label, which was a short-lived, very good label in the early 90s, run by Dave Barker. And this is Red Cross, a band who I know Vinyl Richie likes very much. This is a song called Trance. Now, Red Cross started off as a American sort of hardcore band that had very sort of trash aesthetic leanings, and they were referencing the Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family. But by this stage, in the early 90s, Red Cross were a little bit more psyche sounding, a bit more, and the B-side of the A-side is called Trance, and the B-side of this is called Birds and Fleas. Birds as in Mr. Tambourine Man birds. And so it's a nice single on the Seminal Twang label. So that's some more singles I have rescued from my previous abode, from the garage of my previous abode. And I really think there's not much more left to show, but who knows. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this run through of some fairly obscure 45s, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Devils is a definite state.